Now we have seen a very important point today, one to which you can refer in deep silence of my peace, but which now will not only mean more, but one which you must live with until it takes over in your experience. And that point is that it is God that is our sufficiency. That it is not some form of God that we are to seek, but God itself. That goes back to the last hour, that it isn't God providing a bomb shelter. It isn't God providing money. It isn't God providing companionship. It is God itself that is the money, or God itself that is the shelter, God itself that is the rock. Now, you will find, and perhaps for a while after today, this will be accentuated. You will find temptation striking at you every day, and often many times a day. We're going to use the word temptation. The temptation is going to present itself to you to have a need or desire, and the accompanying thought that, let us see how much it takes of money to provide that. And you are going to have to meet that temptation with the realization, right here, let us begin. Thy grace is my sufficiency. God itself is my sufficiency, and it is God itself that is to be the substance and activity fulfilling this desire or need. And the next time the temptation will appear, it will have nothing to do with money. It probably will be a need for protection, for security, for safety. And again you're going to face that temptation with the realization, no, I don't need protection. God is my protection. God is my sufficiency in this matter of protection or safety or security. Again, the temptation will present itself to require a healing of one sort or another, and again it will have to come. It isn't a healing I require. A healing is a form in which God appears. My need, my realization is, God is my sufficiency. Thy grace is my sufficiency. All I need for healing is God. All I need for safety, security, supply is God. God is my security. God is that point that is to be realized. Now, gradually, dependence is lessened on the things and persons of the outer world. Gradually, one's faith is withdrawn from the forms and effects in the outer world, and a confidence is built up on the fact that the withinness is our only need, the infinite invisible, that which to human sense is intangible, but which we now find to be more substantial than rock, or gold, or jewels, or hiding places. You see, our need is a greater realization of the substantiality of God. That is our real need. We have only thought of God as a supplier of the substantial, instead of God itself being the substantial, the substance, the reality. And so, the personal sense of life, which is founded on the word I, me, mine, that personal sense of life fades out in proportion as the realization is developed, brought forth, that this infinite invisible, which is not a personal I but universal, is actually the essence of being. The wonder, the marvel that comes into our experience when we can be in this world like we can be in this room and say, I don't need anything from anyone here since God is supplying me. You'd be surprised what a wonderful feeling it is and how much love that can be expressed here as long as no one needs anything that anyone else has, and long as no one desires anything that anyone else has. Each one is free in their own integrity, in their own fullness and completeness, and on the contrary, anyone can share with anyone else who has any sense of insufficiency. Now, that can begin in the room here, but you owe the wonder of it as you go out into the world and find that you can enjoy anyone in the world for the simple reason that you have no need of anything that they have, that you have within yourself complete sufficiency. Now, there is a way to end war. There is a way to end lawsuits. There is a way to end unfair competition in business. And this is the way. The way of realization of one's all-sufficiency in God, through God. Only in that way can you go out into this world and love your neighbor as yourself. There is no way while we are thinking of our neighbor as having something necessary to us. It is very much like the salesman who actually believes he's dependent on the goodwill of his buyers. He's in a continuous round of turmoils, trying to be in their good graces, trying to get in their good graces, and after he gets there, to remain in their good graces when they aren't any more necessary to him than yesterday's newspaper. The only thing a salesman requires is God's grace, and nothing else. And so it is with a businessman, and so it is with a businesswoman. Anyone who in any wise believes that they are dependent on somebody's goodwill, on somebody's favor, on somebody's gift. The moment they come to this realization that God's grace is sufficient, they immediately come out from this belief of being dependent on goodwill, favors, gifts. Now, children develop a sense of dependence upon their parents. Wives very often develop a sense of dependence on their husbands. Men develop a sense of dependence on their physicians, on their bosses, on their partners. And you see, all of that tends to hold us in the personal sense of life, which fluctuates, because we have the goodwill today and bad will tomorrow. We have the goodwill today and no will tomorrow. Whereas the development of this realization of God's grace being our sufficiency, that God itself is our only need and fulfillment, draws our attention away from person, place, and thing as dependent, and makes person, place, and thing partners and co-sharers and cooperators. You see what I'm trying to say, what I find it difficult to say, that in every relationship of our existence, home, business, and so forth, that we should have the same feeling with the people of the world that we have for each other in this room. This great joy of sharing, receiving together, cooperating together, being in and with each other, and yet in no wise dependent upon each other, and yet in no wise antagonistic to each other, yet in no wise fearful of each other, because we are only here to receive from God, not from each other, and there is no dependency in this room. There is no one looking to another in this room. Each of us looking only to God. Well, you say, yes, but that's because we're only looking for truth. And so but then we must carry that out into the rest of our existence and know that no matter where we go, we're only looking for truth. Even when we're going out to sell something or buy something, all we're seeking is truth. Always our search is for truth, even when we go to the market to buy food. What we're really going for is truth. When we're going to shop, to market, to sell, all we're going for is truth. And as we catch that idea that truth is our sufficiency, it will appear as food and clothing and raiment, and not from each other, but like we are here, through each other. Now, we are not dependent on anyone in this world for anything. Our entire dependence is on the infinite invisible, just as it is this moment in this room. Our sole reliance is on the infinite invisible of our own being. You'd be surprised to know that even as you sit here listening to me, that you are not dependent upon me for this statement of truth, because if you were, you would miss it. It isn't the truth that I am saying that is going to benefit you. It is the truth that you are receiving and assimilating. My stating this truth isn't going to benefit you. It'll benefit me. Your assimilation of it will benefit you. And that assimilation isn't dependent on me. It is dependent on the amount of Godhood in you. In other words, these words have to become bread, meat, wine, and water within you. Therefore, you must assimilate it, and your digestive apparatus, your spiritual digestive apparatus, is your spiritual awareness. So you see, you're not dependent on me in this room. You're dependent on the infinite invisible within you. And so it is as you go out from this room, your sole reliance is on the infinite invisible of your own being. God's grace in you is your sufficiency. Now there too, you have the middle path again. For the simple reason that it is neither here nor there. It is no dependence on this good or this bad. It is not dependent on the good here or the good here. It is dependent only on this middle way of one's own interior being and development. And so, as I see the vision this year, more attention must be placed on the realization that our good is the free-flowing force of the infinite invisible, and our entire attention must be that my sufficiency is from the withinness. My sufficiency is the grace of God free-flowing in me. I can do all things through the Christ, not through someone who has it within their power to be generous, not through someone who has it within their power to give or to withhold, not through someone who has the power to do or not to do, but completely independent. I saw a vision last year of a tree and of all the leaves on the tree. And the vision was that not one leaf on that tree was dependent on another leaf on that tree, but that every leaf on the tree was dependent on the vine, and the vine on the husbandman, the father. Well, in that same way, is it not clear that God could never have created any one of us to become dependent upon another? God has never let go his government of his own manifested being, the Son of God, which is your infinite individual being and mine. God has never let go of us. God feeds us, maintains us, sustains us as individual being. God is the eternality of our being. Now, it is only because in the development of a human civilization that state of being has come about which we find in cities, people huddling together, feeling that in union there is strength. Now, in fact, in union there is weakness, except the union that takes place in our realization of our oneness with God. The only union in which we can find strength is our union with God. The union with each other is weakness. One weak link destroys the entire chain. That was why the League of Nations failed after the First World War, because within the structure of the League of Nations there was the power of any one nation to say no, and that left a potential weak link, and eventually it failed. Now, in the League of Nations, you're going to have more failure. Can't help it, because it embodies within itself the seed of its own destruction. And what is that? Union. In union there is weakness, because always there is the power of the veto, always there is the power of withdrawal, always there is the power of saying, no, it isn't convenient. And so one's dependence on that union fails them when some one link in the chain falls out. Don't ever forget that. You have a union of nations. And in that union of nations, the greatest strength can't be greater than the weakest nation. Because when it falls out, the structure falls out. We are witnessing that in peace in Korea, a peace that cannot be culminated. We see that in this four-power parlay in Europe. It can't come to anything. It just can't. Why? Because the faith and dependence is in the union, and France hasn't got the strength to be in the union, and Russia hasn't got the will to be in the union. So where is the union going to do anything? The will isn't in God's will, therefore it isn't one will. The strength isn't God's strength, so all of the powers aren't equally strong. Now what good is your union? And it isn't doing any good. I don't mean that there aren't temporary goods come up here and there and a certain amount of good, but the ultimate peace cannot be found through any union except the union with God. And you will find that in every relationship where you could start with marriage, just two people, and think that that union provides strength. Of course it doesn't. The union with God in the marriage would provide strength, but not just the union of two people. That won't provide strength, because sooner or later the weakness of a person develops, and then the whole union collapses. One little trace of weakness in one of them, and the whole union, the whole marriage collapses. Now, where there is union with God, there is no collapse. You form your union with God, your conscious oneness with God, and you will have an eternal and an immortal and an indestructible relationship. Now, We could form a union right here in this room. We could call it a church, or we could call it a religion, or we could call it a philosophy or a way of life, and we could form a union, and pretty soon one weak link would fall out. And all the rest of us would look at each other and wonder what happened. Do you see that? There would be no union in our getting together. The only strength there is in our union is if each one of us forms a union with God, a conscious oneness with God. We have an indestructible relationship that cannot be broken even though it has no human ties. That is why you find on the front page of every pamphlet and on page 40 of The Infinite Way that statement that spiritual illumination breaks down, destroys all material ties and binds men together with the spiritual union. Well, don't you see, and haven't you seen right here in Seattle, and we have seen it in Portland and New York and Victoria and Vancouver and wherever we've gotten together, that our Infinite Way students seem to have a tie that binds them together, and they always show up together in one place of one mind, and there is no physical tie between us, no loyalty, no dues, no membership. And yet where you find us together. We really have a union. We really have a church. But you see, it has no physical form, and it has no physical ties, and the only tie, and this is on same page 40, the only tie that binds us together is love, but not love of each other. It's our love of God. Our love is in and of God. Our union is in and of God, and therefore it's indestructible. And so our conscious union with God constitutes our union with each other. Now this union will be indestructible, eternal and immortal, as long as our loyalty is to God, not to each other. As long as our love is the love of God, we will have the love of each other. The moment we have love of each other, separate and apart from the love of God, our union will be destroyed. The moment we have a loyalty to the Infinite Way, to the book or to the teacher, we will lose that sense of our loyalty to God. But if we maintain our sense of loyalty to God, we will have loyalty to each other, teachers, students, books, and so forth. And always remember that. It is so with marriage, it is so with children. The moment you maintain your family relationship on the strength of duty to parents and on the love of parents, you have a relationship that can be broken. But when a family relationship is built on love of God, loyalty to God, oneness with God, then you have a family that, whether or not there is a physical oneness, there is a oneness that is indestructible, and it makes no difference whether there's physical proximity or not. Now, it has been said that what we loose, we have. What we try to hold on to, we lose. And you will find how true that is in the relationships with the world. The moment we lose our hold on persons and things for our dependence and hold only to our union with God, you will find that we will have harmonious relationships with each other. Mental, physical, moral, financial. All the relationships in the world will be harmonious if it is based on our union with God. Now, so it will be ultimately in world affairs. The moment the nations of the world agree that their dependence is on God, you will find there will be no more barriers of boundaries, tax barriers, and armament barriers, and so forth and so on. But these can never be destroyed while there is strength in union. Only when the strength of union is the union with the individual with his God. It is the same thing when we go to vote. No man votes intelligently unless he has first made his conscious contact with God and finds the way to vote without personal interest. There's no other way to do it. Union with God is strength. Union in numbers is weakness. It has been so, it will be so, always. The message ended at that last stop. But this is Joel in Hawaii adding to the message. You know, I have just returned here after 23,000 miles of air travel. During which I crossed the Pacific Ocean, the American continent, the Atlantic Ocean, and the European continent, and then back again across the entire same territory. But I stopped in Seattle and Portland for a final visit with our students there. You know, there are more students of the Infinite Way in the state of Washington and Oregon than probably any other one state or section of the country. And these students have been studying the writings and having classwork since my very first trip to the Northwest. And so you can always look for a beautiful message to come out of the Northwest. And I feel that when you hear this Northwest series of about 4 tapes, that you will feel as I do, that we have reached another stage of our unfoldment. Heretofore, we have had our classes and our lectures, and out of these have come the writings and the recordings, and they make an interesting study. But we have come to the end of 7 years of the Infinite Way, and the time has come now for a deeper practice of the Infinite Way. Remember this: study is a legitimate activity when you turn to the spiritual path, but study has a definite purpose. And that purpose is to arrive at the practice of spiritual living, because it is the practice of spiritual living that brings forth the harmonies of the Spirit into our everyday human lives. This is the real meaning of the Word made flesh. Now that the teaching has come into the open, even in its deeper aspect, we must expect those of our students who not only are reading the writings, but who are studying these tape recordings, to practice, so that we may have a nucleus of students to take up the healing ministry for the rest of the world. In the Master's day, he healed the sick, raised the dead, fed the multitudes, preached the gospel. And he had 12 disciples. and 70 apostles. And they bore the responsibility of going out into the world to heal the sick, raise the dead, feed the multitudes, and preach the gospel. Now, of course, there are tens of thousands of people in the world reading the Infinite Way writings. There are some thousands of people studying these writings. But there are only a few thousand hearing and studying the writings and the recordings. And it is from this group that we must find those earnest, serious, sincere students who are willing to devote themselves not merely to reading the writings and hearing the tape recordings, but actually to studying them to the degree of practice, so that within this next year or two we may have a nucleus of working practitioners, not necessarily professional practitioners to go to an office and sit there all day waiting for sick people to come in. Not that. That may not be our type of practice. But of working practitioners who can take the responsibility of doing healing work for the thousands who are writing to me from all over the globe and seeking healing. You know that it is an impossibility for me now to care for the healing work for the entire world. And as our writings are spread throughout the British Empire, Germany, Switzerland, Central America, and all of the United States and Canada, can you not realize what my mail is like now? Every day that I go to the post office, the clerks wonder at what I'm carrying away out of that box. Every day it is laden with mail from all over the globe. No, perhaps not all over the globe, but more than half of the globe. And what do you think is in that mail? 3/4 of it consists of calls for help. People who want to be healed of their physical ills, mental, moral, financial. People who are seeking release from the fears of this world. It is a beautiful work I have. Those of you who have seen me in the many cities at work know not only that it is a beautiful work, but you know how much I love it. But you also must come to know now that the Infinite Way wants, needs students to study these works to the degree that they can be doers of the Word and not only hearers of the Word. Then, as these letters come from all over the world, the Infinite Way will be enabled to prove, even as the Master and his disciples proved, that the spiritual way is the way of health, harmony, wholeness, completeness, satisfaction. Perhaps this would be a good time to tell you that as spiritual light comes to your consciousness, it has a purpose far greater than that of bringing blessing to you. It is never given to us to receive spiritual illumination for our own benefit. Many people have overlooked this point and have believed that when spiritual light came to them,
that it was for the meeting of their problems, for the overcoming of their problems, and for the bringing of greater harmonies into their experience. My student's spirit never had such intentions. You might as well believe that the sun shines in order that your garden may grow. The sun and its shining has no awareness of your garden. The sun is shining merely because it is the nature of the sun to shine, and it is for the benefit of every garden that gets in the way of that sunlight. Spirit, in expressing itself, has but one purpose, and that purpose is to express itself. That purpose is to be the light that dispels darkness. It has no idea of coming to you for your particular benefit or of coming to me for my particular benefit. Spirit just is. Spirit expresses. Spirit reflects itself into the universe. Spirit appears as the very life and substance of this universe. But as we individually come to know this truth makes us free of the inharmonies and discords of the world. Now, to try to hold the light of spirit in a limited sphere of performing for you or for me would be to try to finitize that which is infinite. Please believe me that when the spirit of truth, the spirit of love, comes to your consciousness, it is not coming there for your benefit, but that through you it becomes the light of the world to all who come within range of your consciousness. Once the Spirit of the Christ has touched you, you will have no more problems. Or you may have experiences of discord here or there in some minor degree, but you will never think of them as problems anymore. Nor will you be too greatly concerned with them, because by the time you have been touched by the light of the Christ, you will know that that omnipresent light dispels any shadow that may come in its sphere. But you will be concerned with this, that the so-called problems of your family, of your friends, of your neighbors, of your community, ultimately of the world at large, you will be concerned that this light dispel the darkness for them. Now, it is in this sense that I say, as you practice spiritualism, as you come to a state of consciousness in which you begin to realize, why, I'm not planning my life anymore. I'm not taking thought about my life. I'm not being concerned with it. I wake up each day and find there are certain things to be done, and I do them. But always I notice that these things are harmoniously performed, and always timely and generously. And so I find that I have no personal life with which to concern myself. And so I am free to let the world come to my doorstep, to my house, to my spiritual consciousness, and there partake of the light. Those of you who are seriously studying and practicing are finding that you give less and less thought to your own body, to your own business, your own experience, your own household. Things get done more and more seemingly of their own accord, and with less and less of personal worry personal thought, and personal activity. And this makes you free. And this freedom isn't for you, it is for the world. It is for all those who come to your spiritual household to be redeemed, to have their problems translated, reinterpreted into spiritual reality. Now, in the New York closed classes, the New York practitioner classes, and in this Northwest series, we have material for much more than a year of very serious study and practice. And I do ask now that of you, who are the students of the writings and the recordings, that you apply yourself more diligently, not only to the study, but to the practice and the living of truth, so that you may answer the call within this next year or two to be helpers in the work. I have been at work on our new monthly letter, and quite a vision opens up to me in connection with it. Only 2 months have these letters gone out, and already requests have come in from all over the United States and Canada, England, Germany, Switzerland, 3 parts of Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. And of course you can see that it will only be a short time till these letters will be covering as much of the globe as can at this moment be reached. And they will serve in a way that will unite us, that is, unite those of us who study the letter in one consciousness, at one time, in one place. These letters are not meant merely to be read as a letter or a message, but rather as a lesson given to us of the Father. I have never written a letter, and I hope never to write a letter, except after deep meditation, and a meditation in which contact is made with the Father within, so that each letter will be a direct message or lesson from the Father. It will be truth, and truth is light, and that light dispels all darkness, every illusion of sense. But it will also be a message of love. And as you know, love unites, binds. It unites us in God, it binds us to God. Love is the cement holding us all within the one. Perhaps you remember a couple of years ago I told you that I had a vision that there will be something like a cloud around this universe, which would be a cloud of love and truth, so that anyone, anywhere on the face of the globe could really open themselves to life, truth, and love, open themselves to this consciousness and find themselves at one with the universal love, the universal life. This letter fulfills part of that vision, because as it goes around the globe, it unites us in its message. It forms a complete, unending oneness of truth, of love, of life around the globe. It manifests a united consciousness of light, freedom, joy, of peace, of power around the universe. And because of this one infinite consciousness of truth, consciously manifested throughout the globe, I believe that anyone, anywhere, at any time, can lift their thought and tune into that consciousness and find themselves embraced and enfolded within it, within the divine power and the divine presence which that one consciousness is. Watch as you, your family, your friends, partake of this letter, partake of the meat and drink of this letter. Watch if you are not becoming a state of divine consciousness to which all the world may come. Watch, and let me know what unfolds in your experience, in the experience of those with whom you come in contact as a result of our monthly letter. It has been beautiful returning here to Hawaii. Everything seems to be in full bloom. The weather, the climate is as gentle and peaceful as ever. And I feel conscious of the growingness of things. Everywhere about us there is that sense of growing, that sense of unfolding good, that sense of infinite abundance pouring itself through into this universe, into the consciousness of men. And naturally I will look to greater unfoldments from our Father. Well, this is all for now, but I know you will want to write me after you have heard this Northwest feeling. Aloha, aloha. This is Joel.